All right, my main goal when I'm up here is that everyone can hear me because poetry, there's no point if you can't hear it. So my people in the back, can you hear me pretty well? You do good? Awesome. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for having me. I love Medina. I met Sophia last year and I was just so amazed and inspired by everything that Medina Institute is doing. I'm very honored to be here. I have a poem today. It is called Double Consciousness. This is a term that is coined by W.E.B. Du Bois, And I just want to kind of quote exactly what this means. It is something that I find to be very correlated with Islamophobia. He says, double consciousness, it is a peculiar sensation. This sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. So when I think of Islamophobia, and when I was doing the Muslims of the World tour, I just want to give a little background before I start this poem so you understand where I'm coming from. Islamophobia, we have noticed, is affecting those of other faiths who look at Muslimin. But what we don't notice is that Islamophobia also affects Muslimin and how we see ourselves. It ends up becoming a pattern. So for me, the two times I really started feeling Islamophobia is one, after 9/11, absolutely. The second time is when I put hijab on. I'm actually very newly hijabi. This is my second year, alhamdulillah. But before, people didn't know I was Muslim. I would hear things when people didn't know I was of that faith. And I think this poem is really trying to target Islamophobia and the fear behind it. So, bismillah. I was in the 3rd grade the first time they called me a terrorist. Look like the people on TV, but younger with fair skin. Like the people who use God to blame for their arrogance, whose sins could make spines design thick-skinned skeletons that can walk and talk like us with pigmented melanin, that show you in some way that I am un-American. Loud thoughts in quiet rooms, I heard them when they never said it. No words, just staggering eyes that took me back to 9/11. It was back to their resentment, back to when the smoke clouded their vision and didn't believe me when I meant it. I apologized 1,000 times for the horrible acts that those men did. I apologized for years for things I never did in hopes of being accepted. I have lived 9/11 a million times. How dare they think Muslims weren't affected? And no, I don't remember that day or the news. My mom did it on purpose. She treated us like nothing that was wrong was our fault and our religion would never hurt us. Imagine apologizing for something that you had no part in. Then you'll get a glimpse of what it's like growing up Muslim. This is the part of the story where we climb mountains to get along, where we spend a little extra time to find sabr in a response. The part where I read you before I see you and I relax your nerves as they scream in silence. I remember to only feel contentment and feel my real emotions in private. I pretend that I can't see hovering eyes and clenched jaws when they see me near. Turn my shoulder, act like I didn't hear the murmur of a man's worries in his woman's ear. Look right over there. Don't look for too long, she might notice that we stare. That's when I shoot back with a smile so bright that it dissipates any ounce of worry in thin air. Climbing mountains for these people to see me and realize that fear is a liar. Then you turn on CNN only for us to go back 10 steps, watching them fueling the fire. God forbid you have a bad day, then you realize all Muslims are violent. I remember bending backwards for a racist man in hopes he would see Muslim women were pious. As I'm getting older, I realize sometimes that our ummah favors the silence. And I can't decipher if it's because we isolate or because at least no one gets hurt in the quiet. Double consciousness is a double-edged sword depending on who's in front of it and who's behind it. Everything emotional and critical has just become noise. I am bilingual, but not all languages spoken contain voice that burnt the bittersweet taste in your tongue that made your words feel worthless. Those bridges burned voices, ya Allah, they could have lit torches, and they have the audacity to tell me that silence is golden. They told us talk is cheap, so we left our words choked and swollen. I housed a home beneath my bitter tongue. I have swallowed entire oceans. Remember, silence is golden, but money talks. But you can't feed minds the same way you feed mouths. You can't simply thrive on the possessions on shelves. I promise you, the unfed mind devours itself. You have the right to remain silent, but the silence has left us settling. Don't you see, we climb mountains for a life we don't even blend in. We change the pronunciation of our names so that their tongues are less offended. They can pronounce Swarovski just fine, but you'll come off less relaxed and more pretentious. We could excuse ourselves for a 5-minute prayer, but that would really catch their attention. So then we find ourselves in a tight-fitting room, praying to Allah in repentance. Tell the woman outside our room it didn't fit. Compromising Allah's wishes has become too expensive. When we hide the beauty of our faith from the world, I wonder who we're really protecting. But why has our silence never been looked at as a burden? Matter of fact, why has our silence been shown as a sign that we're growing? Why must we act neutral in moments of pain so that we appear more human? Being Muslim growing up felt like, how many tears can you hold in? How many times can you be the bigger person? How many times can you be the better version? Shorten your name a few syllables so their tongues aren't nervous. Double consciousness, we live this double life, but only we see the curtain. Only we see their fear, even with their closed eyes, closed minds and eyes open. I've made a conscious decision to prove that fear is brutal and it is broken. Because fear built these domes around our homes, and I slammed the door and I switched positions. Fear invited every one of us inside, and I said, I'm not going back to those conditions. Fear tells you that the world is out to get you, and I said, I'm not going back inside those prisons. You know, those prisons are full of everything. They're full of everything but forgiveness. And if this life is made of pain, then we fight pain with arms open, like Musa alayhi salam before his staff split the ocean, before those who followed him were bone shaken and nervous, and at times we feel the same and we speak so soon. With Pharaoh behind them, they stated, Inna lamudrakun. In translation, this means we are literally doomed. But there is always unshakable faith. There is always light after darkness. There is always something to be gained. And many times it lies in the unseen. Musa said, Kalla inna ma'i rabbi sayahdeen. God is with me with no hesitation but guarantee. So what if we're climbing this mountain and each step forward is haunting? What if the closer you get to the top, the more it feels like you're drowning? They're starting to recognize you more, commend you what you fight for, tell you that the view is worth the climb. You forgot what the climb was for. Acceptance, connections, if only it looked as good as it sounded. What happens when you reach the top, only to realize you climbed the wrong mountain? We're so busy trying to get to the top, we forgot Allah's mercy was grounded. He's far closer in sujood than on the mountaintops clouded. We were meant to look different, speak different, have different passions, multiple languages, but what language do you laugh in? What type of patience do you practice? Sticks and stones have broken bones, but man, words have created magic. They created friendships and compassion. They created bridges instead of matches. They created dialogue that cleared fog and created depth within their glasses. It's the 21st century, and we still have people speaking for us. And I know we have full faith in Allah, but we need to have more trust. And that nothing will ever befall a practicing Muslim unless it was better for us. And when someone makes a negative comment about your headdress, you wear it tighter. How do you think a small girl from Cleveland, Ohio became a writer? How do you think a man from Dearborn, Michigan used his fire? How Islam became the fastest growing religion they can't decipher? How a woman from the Bronx named Linda became a fighter? We were supposed to be oppressed and abused. Now they're confused why we don't fit the title. And now it's our book, and the Muslim isn't the victim anymore. We come on top and inspire. Because our words catalyze influence. Our silence could imprison the pure and innocent. Our silence showed freedom doesn't always mean equivalence. We tell ourselves, I am one man, as if it's a deficit to our soul's element. When will we understand that being one is the only prerequisite? How many revolutions did we leave translucent? What if I had a dream, was left a dream and not a movement? A movement of moments the truth was illuminated by the people. We hold these truths self-evident that all men were created equal. Remember when Malcolm X was told by his teacher to remain mediocre? She told him you'd be better off a carpenter than you could ever be a lawyer. And that's the thing about hatred. It has absolutely nothing to prove. So when it walks in, shame isn't even a shadow in the room. But Rosa Parks made a statement just by refusing to get up. She wasn't saying she wasn't less. She was declaring, I am enough. December 1st, 1955, she was a subtle storm with no signs of trouble. This woman moved mountains without moving a single muscle. Tell me, what would we become if our eyes were just screens, our voices were just recordings, and our minds were sold antiques? Tell me, what would we be without a beating heart and two lungs? You know, they say the intention of the heart lies beneath the tongue. Movements don't mean violence, but there's violence in what we do not say. We're held accountable to make a difference no matter the differences in our faith. We are held accountable for all the good we kept that we should have willingly gave. And if you're only helping yourself, then tell me, how many lives did you save? I do this for the strong women who are struggling with their hijab. And for those who don't wear it, who are looked at as losing their iman. We do this for the teenagers watching Fox News belittle their Islam. For the kids on 9/11 who beg their parents to skip class because going through it once in this life was equally as bad. We do this because we can. We do this by choice. We do this for all the Muslimin in China who don't even have a voice. They're slaughtered like animals and they do it by force. So we don't have time to be scared. We're too distracted by noise. It's time to stand up. Because when you stand up, the spines of others stiffen up. Hatred is only magnified because hate is naturally louder than love. Love is quiet and it's around you and it has the softest touch. No more waiting around praying for miracles to happen. What if you think to yourself that someone else will stand up only to realize they haven't? We cannot adjust to silence when the pain of others is unjustly discussed. And when it is all said and done, what will be said of us? So let us be stronger for the future, not as an option, but as a must. Because we are counting on these future generations, but see how many of them are counting on us. Thank you.